This episode of Pool Magazine Podcast is proudly sponsored by Aquamatic Cover Systems, the leaders in functional technology across an entire spectrum of swimming pool covers. Today, retractable pool covers are an important part of any pool project. Regardless of your needs or budget, if your concerns are safety, energy efficiency, pool cleanliness, evaporation control, or all the above, Aquamatic has you covered. To learn more about Hydrolux, our most advanced and adaptable automatic system, visit us on the web today at aquamatic.com.
Welcome back to the Pool Magazine Podcast. Today we're happy to be joined by Casey McGovern, water safety advocate and one of the key voices behind Every Child a Swimmer, a nationally recognized initiative that's working to ensure that all children, regardless of their financial means, have access to life-saving swim lessons and water safety education. It's a pleasure to have you with us today on the show, Casey.
Thank you so much for having me. It's my pleasure.
Casey, I know that your why for this mission stems from a deeply personal and painful event that happened in your own life. For those unfamiliar with Every Child a Swimmer, can you share your story with our listeners and explain how this program first got started, what made it such a unique and powerful initiative in the water safety space, and why it was something that you gravitated to?
Of course. So my story is a little personal than most for those of you that haven't heard it before, but on August 3rd, 2009, our family spent the day in the pool, and I had three girls, ages 11, 3, and 19 months of age, as well as my husband. We enjoyed just the last days of summer and got out of the pool to start preparing dinner and kind of the evening as we normally had. And so I got out of the pool first with my daughter, who was Edna Mae, and who was 19 months of age. And my husband came out soon after with our 11-year-old and our 3-year-old. As he came in, I had left to go to the grocery store to go get groceries for that evening and just the next couple days. And when I had gotten back from the grocery store, I had met my daughter in the family room, from the laundry room into the family room, and put her in a little chair on the opposite side of my kitchen counter so that I could proceed to put groceries away. And as busy parents, we all kind of understand that that's just a mundane kind of normal chore that happens. But again, she's in my eyesight. She's on the other side of the kitchen counter while I put my groceries away. And so I'm doing that. And then my husband happened to call me in the front part of the house, which is another living room, to ask me a question. So I had left that portion of the house to go into another area and came back a moment later, and she wasn't where I had left her. And so I, again, was really complacent and comfortable in my house, thinking that my home was safe. And so I went bedroom to bedroom looking for her because I knew I wanted to put my eyes on her, but I wasn't alarmed and I wasn't really concerned. I just was like, let me just, put my eyes on her. So I went bedroom to bedroom and looking through the house before I realized that our sliding glass door had a little bit of an opening. And so I went out to the backyard, and again, we had like this little grassy area next to the pool where there was a little swing that she enjoyed. And so I went that way, not even thinking about the pool. And that was when the glimpse of Edna Mae was floating in our pool. I caught the glimpse of her in our pool. And so immediately I just ran around our pool fence because we did have one. However, we had one that was the manual closure. It wasn't self-closing, self-latching gate. And so when we got out staggered earlier that afternoon, we must have left that portion of the gate open, which allowed her to gain access to the pool. So I ran around the pool and I just grabbed her and held her and obviously screamed, but you don't really remember those moments at that time. But thankfully my husband came out because he heard. And so he took her from me and put her on the coping of the pool and started CPR. And, because of what he did, he allowed us to have 1 week with her in the hospital. The severity of her injuries allowed her to, survive for the week. But unfortunately, at the end of that week, she was left with no brain activity. And so we had to say goodbye to her and donate her organs, which were able to help 4 family members. And so going back to our home after that incident occurred, I found a receipt from Publix that I checked out of, the grocery store that afternoon, and how our world changed. And something so significant about that day was I checked out of Publix with a family of 5 groceries at 3:46 p.m. And at 4:15, I'm sitting in the emergency room watching my daughter fight for her life. So a matter of 29 minutes, our world was shook and rocked, and our worst nightmare absolutely occurred. And that's what I want parents to understand, is that it just happens in a moment. You go this way, a child goes that way. They're unpredictable, and without layers of protection or having the ability to learn how to swim, tragedies like this continue to happen. And so fast forward into this journey, upon leaving her, I made her a promise. My last words to her was, I will commit my life to this. This is my promise to you. I will educate as many parents as I can about the risk factors so that it doesn't have to happen to them. And so, we're coming on her 18th birthday, what would have been her 18th birthday, and just past the 16th anniversary of her incident. And not a day has gone by that I haven't stopped. I've pivoted. I've figured things out. Initially, I thought I was going to teach swim lessons, and realizing that wasn't really what I needed to be doing. So soon after her death, I accepted a position at the Florida Department of Health, running the drowning prevention program there. And I ran that initiative as well as some statewide work for the drowning prevention realm and community for a little over 8 years, I would say, before I wanted to do more. I realized that I could and wanted, and I was prepared to do more. But that opportunity allowed me to heal and grow and learn. And one of my first initiatives when I got there was to work within the pool industry. This industry is in the backyards, and they're taking care of these pools that are claiming so many lives. And when I first started approaching some of the potential partners, they were like, no way, no how, this is a taboo topic. We don't address it. And so thankfully, with working together with them, we started to work on creating a proactive message, and one that was received well, and things that we could do to educate families and people that have the pools in the backyards, or even if their neighbors have the pools. But we created a message in South Florida region, specifically at first, a decade ago or more, just with a proactive message that this can happen. Now, what are you going to do about it? Or sharing the resources that are available to them. But in about 2020, I realized that I was ready and I needed to do more. And so that's when I connected with Dr. Bill Kent, and we spearheaded the efforts for the Every Child Swimmer legislation, requiring all schools to share water safety information with parents and caregivers, as well as where to go for local swim lessons. And with that being said, I was in government realm, and I wasn't really allowed to advocate for legislative efforts. And so I knew that my time at the Department of Health had to come to an end. And so I left that. We had success passing the legislation so soon after that. Just because a bill passes doesn't mean that it actually does the work after it passes. So it takes somebody to spearhead those efforts.
Right.
And so I was recruited and solicited to create the infrastructure as it stands of the Every Child Swimmer program and what it is today.
Well, it's definitely a very poignant story, Casey. I appreciate you, sharing the events that happened in your life and what drew you to the path that you're on now. This advocacy that you're doing is very powerful. I mean, how has sharing your story with others and watching this mission grow helped you with your own healing process and your family's healing process?
I'm thankful that I'm still married, and we've been a team, and my husband has supported every effort and allowed me to do what I had to do in order to chase after this mission and this purpose. And turning my tragedy or our tragedy into a purpose is what drives me. We can't bring her back, but we do have the potential to save so many other lives by sharing her story. And I think that's what gives me a bigger drive, and sharing her story and seeing the momentum being made and the changes being occurred and the collaborations of different community partners gives me just more drive and more fire to just continue this message and hopefully continue it on until my last breath.
Well, I want to hit on one point that you made earlier, and that was that the topic of drowning prevention, swim safety, is no longer the elephant in the room for the pool industry that it once was. And I think that programs like Every Child a Swimmer have a lot to do with that. I mean, as that program has grown and evolved over the past few years, what are you most personally proud of when it comes to the real world impact that ECAS is making in communities today?
I think that the biggest thing that I'm proud of is the legislation. I think that's the biggest catalyst to change, and one that I never could see possible 16 years ago. Just to give you a quick synopsis, I worked for a family-run business for 14 plus years, and I was I am a severe introvert. And so facing that legislative challenge and passing laws is something that is just mind-boggling to me, and just such an incredible honor to be one small piece of life's being changed forever. And so, we've had success with our community partners passing the Every Child Swimmer legislation in 8 states so far. And we were just getting started. And what that does is that it brings the awareness to the parents and the caregivers through the school system in the biggest, broadest net. And so I think that is something that I'm proud of. But I'm also really incredibly proud of the infrastructure that we created with our Learn to Swim scholarship program, because we hold our swim school partners at the highest level of accountability and only work with swim schools that have a high level of integrity and also align with our mission, so that we're creating meaningful change. I mean, we track every child that gets a scholarship from start to finish, knowing that they're going to be safer in and around the water. And so between the legislation efforts, spreading that message on a broad scale in a way that touches them and educates them and raises the awareness, and then the scholarship program where we're creating meaningful change and actually creating a generation of swimmers, those two things go hand in hand together. And I'm incredibly proud of just being one small little piece of that puzzle.
Well, you mentioned that you've helped pass Every Child a Swimmer legislation in states like Florida, Georgia, Arkansas. I believe it's recently passed here in California as well. I mean,
Yes.
what makes this approach using schools to share water safety info so effective?
Well, it meets the parents where they're at. And so I think it's the easiest conduit to be able to disseminate the information and share the risk factors that are associated with water safety and drowning prevention, and also it plugs them into where to go for local swim lessons. So I think that it's the easiest approach to be able to reach the masses in the quickest fashion. We're working alongside a couple other coalitions in the United States Swim School Association as well to do Part B. So right now our approach is the school bill, we call it, and then the hospital bill. The school bill is focused on school age, kindergarten through 12th grade. Doesn't quite hit our demographic, and so it's kind of a little bit of a hard stretch. However, we're hoping they'll have younger siblings. We're hoping that the ripple effect of education will be shared and kind of ripple out to create that hope and awareness on a larger scale. And then the hospital bill, what it does is it requires all new parents at the time of delivery, before they're discharged from the hospital, to watch a 6-minute video about water safety and the risk factors associated with it and what they can do to prevent a situation from happening. And again, it's hitting the target. It's not hitting our target demographic either, because it's a 1 to 4 age group. However, it's another touch point for parents at a pivotal point in the child's life. And with the school bill and the hospital bill, we're hoping to be able to meet the parents at those times in their life, so they'll actually act, and then it'll kind of resonate. And my mission with the legislation and what my thought is, October is Fire Safety Awareness Month, and we all know growing up, stop, drop, and roll. We all know we need to have fire extinguishers in our home. We all know that we have to have smoke detectors in our home, and we have to replace those batteries annually. I mean, it is ingrained in our brains. I know that I learned it. I know that everybody else that I've talked to, as this journey has kind of went on, they know it. However, nobody talks about water safety. And so I'm hoping that with our legislation efforts, it will kind of be the norm, just like the fire safety component is the norm in schools. And I think we'll get there. I really do believe that we'll get there. It's just going to take some time. And, we've only been at this for just under 4 years. So I think we're doing a pretty good job at it.
Well, let me ask you, I mean, for professionals or water safety advocates who may be listening in, I mean, how can folks get involved to support this legislative push, especially in states where this type of policy has not yet been adopted?
Well, I think that the pool industry has such an important piece, and it's a vital piece to what we're doing, because they're building, they're servicing, and they have that voice that not many of us do have. And they're well connected. Some are well connected within state representatives and senators and decision makers and commissioners that could hopefully help us make that change. And so I think that first and foremost within the pool industry is just have those conversations with people that you have relationships with and that could potentially help us move the needle and create a bigger, broader change. I mean, it's going to take all of us to be able to do that. And so I just encourage you to meet with your local commissioners, your local representatives, your local senators, and just start building that relationship and sharing a little bit about what the Every Child Swimmer legislation does. And if you don't know necessarily what to do, make the contact with an email with myself, and I'll take it and run with it. Because again, once they hear about the issue, in most cases, they're all supportive. I mean, it is the number one cause of death for children 1 to 4, and it's the number two cause of death for children 5 to 14, and it is 100% preventable. And so I think that they're just not aware. I think that drowning has a stigma that's attached to where like it only happens to those type of people. And that's not what it is. I mean, it can happen to the wealthiest and the poorest of the poorest. It does not discriminate. And so I think that's what we have to do is normalize this conversation and make it less taboo. This is happening and this is real. And we're not even touching the non-fatals. The non-fatals are 8 times the numbers we're looking at right now for the fatalities. And so we have an epidemic, and we need to just full force address it and talk about it and make it, that it's a normal conversation to have with others. And then maybe we'll start moving that needle when that happens.
Well, you're already moving the needle in the industry. I mean, ECAS has built really strong partnerships over the last couple of years with organizations like NESPA, FSPA on the manufacturing end, as well with organizations like AquaCal, RayPac. I mean, swim schools across the country. What do successful partnerships look like in practice?
I think just aligning with our mission. I think that's one of the things that sets us apart is just really aligning ourselves with committed partners. We're in this together. And, to talk about our swim school partners, we have about 372, maybe 375 currently that we have a line of credit partnership with them. It doesn't go away. It's an ongoing relationship where they need something, they have a question, they have a family in need, they have, different things. We're in it together. And so it's a workable relationship that they know that they could come to us at any moment and be able to expand, their line of credit or be able to serve the community on a larger level. We're there to help them. It's a partnership that we're in it together to help their communities. And then with our partners, again, we want to have that workable relationship. We want to be able to hear what they offer to us to be able to continue to grow and what they can do to assist our efforts. And again, we're small but mighty. We have a team of about 3 full-time staff, if you want to look at it in that capacity. And, we're all committed to really, truly moving the needle and having that ripple effect of hope and creating a generation of swimmers. And so, I'm really thankful for the partners that have come up alongside us and believed in our mission and in how we do things. And anybody that has any questions, I usually try to meet with them one-on-one and just try to elaborate a little bit more on how we do it. We're built on a high accountability as well as transparency model. We have 5% of our funding goes to administration right off the top. I'm completely transparent in that capacity. 95% of all funding goes right back directly into the program. We do have the ability to have matching dollars. And so we're a strong organization and ready to just take it on and continue to just double and triple our growth each and every year.
Well, most of our listeners of this podcast, I'd say probably 95% of them are going to be builders, service pros. I mean, for those guys that are listening in, what are some of the most practical ways that they can get involved in helping support the mission of Every Child a Swimmer?
That's a great question. I think first thing that I would ask as just, right off the cuff is just have the conversations. If you're a builder, make sure that you're having that conversation about being proactive. You're building this big, beautiful recreational item in your backyard. Please protect it. I bought this house that had 4-bedroom in Coral Springs, and I thought I was absolutely blessed to be able to have a bedroom for each of my girls with a pool in the backyard and a nice school district. And less than 1 year later, I wanted nothing to do with that house because it claimed the life of my daughter. So I think that letting them understand, not in a scary way, but in a proactive way to say, having the fencing, having the door alarms, teaching your child to swim, making sure supervision is the key is important. So to have those conversations, to be able to send them in your electronic bills, put them in your client packets, have them follow your social media and post occasionally, proactive, supportive things within those areas so that it becomes a normal piece of conversation. Service industry, again, if they leave pool toys in the pool, that's just an added attraction. Making sure that you have that conversation to say, leaving that there, the child may just want to grab the ball, but because their heads are way more than the rest of their body, they'll grab the ball, topple in, and not be able to help themselves. So not leaving toys in the pool, making sure the gates are closed, having those conversations, you don't realize how big of a influence you have on them. And it's not a scary conversation to do that. And so I really encourage you to include this in part of your business, whether it's your bills, your new client packages, your leave behinds, anything, but incorporate this into your business. And you don't realize how many lives you could save in that process. Regarding the call to action for helping us and connecting with us, every dollar goes somewhere. So even if you service a pool and you want to donate $1 per pool that you service, it goes right back into the Learn to Swim Scholarship Program and helping kids that cannot afford it. One of the things I did not talk about is all of our scholarships go to children that come from families that make below $50,000 a year. And they are partnered with a swim school that focuses on quality. So they are allowed to have no more than a 6-to-1 ratio so that we know that we're building on each lesson that goes on, and they actually retain a skill that will help them in the future. If you build a pool, set a dollar amount and even ask the client if they would be willing to match it or help with that by adding another $100, $50, $500 is what it costs per child for us in our scholarships, but asked if they would be willing to partner with you to be able to teach one child how to swim, because every dollar can really make a big difference.
I'm sure can. I mean, I know that you guys do accept donations, that you do fundraisers, that you do participate in different events to try and draw participation into Every Child a Swimmer. In fact, there's another event, the Women in the Industry Walk, which is happening on October 26th. I mean, can you tell us what this event means to you and how it ties back to the mission of Every Child a Swimmer?
Absolutely. It's an absolute honor to have, the witty women come behind us and support us and believe in our mission. It was just through casual conversations that this kind of evolved, and they wanted to help in some way. And they found a way to be able to network together to be able to put on this walk. And last year, believe that it generated just under $15,000 with the matching of the different partners, and really was a really great event that I went to. And this year is the second annual, where we're doing virtual biking as well as walking if you can't make it to Pennsylvania. Myself and my team will be there in person and be able to support everybody. But just having people believe in what we're doing really means the world to us. And them coming alongside us and taking this initiative on means the absolute world to us. And it's going to be saving a lot of kids. And also the funds raised for the Witty Walk, I'll go right back into that in that geographic area. So we earmark those funds and they stay to serve the kiddos in that area too. So it's a win-win for everybody. And we're just really grateful for their support.
Looking ahead, Casey, I mean, what's your vision for the future of Every Child a Swimmer over the next 5 to 10 years?
Oof, that's a really good question as well. My vision is to make sure that the legislation passes and is fully implemented in each and every state, with part 1 and part 2, which means the school bill as well as the hospital bill. I think that would be a really good touch point. Maybe pushing forward into the pediatrician realm in the next decade as well would be really helpful, because again, as parents, we all lean into our pediatricians for advice. And I think that they have a big part in the mix of educating families and helping us with this mission. Regarding the Learn to Swim Scholarship Program, I don't want any waiting list. I don't want to turn any child away. I want to be able to provide the Learn to Swim environment that really encourages children to fall in love with what the water has to offer and see where it could take them by just learning how to swim and gaining that confidence. And so being able to have the means and the ability and the funding to provide lessons to any child, and even potentially adults, because there's a lot of adults, 54% of Americans cannot swim well enough to save themselves. That would be my ultimate dream, is to just not have to worry about the funding factor and be able to open up those scholarships to be able to provide that access to anybody that may need it.
Well, those adults that don't know how to swim, I mean, there were children that didn't know how to swim. All right. They never had access to that pool. If we're ever going to ensure that every child in America knows how to swim, what needs to change? What's it going to take, Casey?
Well, I had an interview last week, and I think that implementing it in the schools would be probably the easiest fix to that, making it mandatory that all schools just provide, swim lessons throughout the school day, just to remove anything else part of the curriculum across the board. I don't think that we'll get there, but I think that normalizing it and making it as accessible as possible to anybody, anywhere, and, affordable for everybody. I think that, formal swim lessons reduce the risk of drowning by 88%. It's the only thing that we could do to truly solve this problem, is creating a generation of swimmers. And so opening up access, making it as easy as possible for people to learn is really going to change that generational kind of obstacle that many parents have. And just talking about it and normalizing the conversation that it doesn't have to be scary. And this is what to expect during swim lessons. And this is the world that it can open. I mean, not only could you be a potential competitive swimmer or Olympian, it opens up career opportunities and development too, getting into the marine industry, getting into the pool industry, becoming a law enforcement individual. I mean, all of those things you have to learn how to swim to be able to do. And so just having that basic knowledge opens up a whole entire world. So normalizing the conversation is probably the biggest thing that we need to do by raising that awareness and then, making it as accessible for people to learn.
Well, Casey, I want to thank you for taking time out today to chat with us, share your story, discuss what your organization's all about. I mean, Every Child a Swimmer is doing some incredible work that's literally saving kids' lives. It's a very noble mission that I think anyone in this industry can get behind.
Thank you so much. I really do appreciate that.
Well, for our listeners, if you're in the pool industry, consider how you or your company can support this mission, whether that's by donating, advocating, or partnering with Every Child a Swimmer. Visit everychildaswimmer.org to learn more. That's all the time that we have left for today. Make sure to like, share, follow, and subscribe, and we'll catch you next time on another episode of Pool Magazine Podcast.
This episode of Pool Magazine Podcast is proudly sponsored by Aquamatic Cover Systems, the leaders in functional technology across an entire spectrum of swimming pool covers. Today, retractable pool covers are an important part of any pool project. Regardless of your needs or budget, if your concerns are safety, energy efficiency, pool cleanliness, evaporation control, or all the above, Aquamatic has you covered. To learn more about Hydrolux, our most advanced and adaptable automatic system, visit us on the web today at aquamatic.com.